When large jobs require moving massive amounts of snow, get the work done quickly and efficiently with the Western Pile Driver and all-new Pile Driver XL pusher plows, both featuring Trace Edge technology. These pushers scrape down to the pavement with an advanced cutting-edge system that has independent 2-foot sections that move vertically, oscillate, and trip. Get more jobs done faster with the Western Pile Driver lineup of pusher plows.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. This morning I have with me special guest, John Giegerich, partner at CEO Coaching International. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Dave. How we doing?
I'm doing outstanding.
I'm doing outstanding.
I know you are. How many miles did you run this morning?
5.5. As you know, Dave, I did 25K last weekend to bring in 2025, and so today was just one final 5.5 mile run for the year.
That's awesome. I'm, super proud of you. I've got to get 6.5 miles done here today. To get 600 by the end of the year. But this isn't about me today. This is about you. And one of my favorite things that I learned from you over the last year is this concept of Ford. And I have taken this on as my own, and I use it wherever I go. And so Ford is an acronym, and I'm not going to steal the thunder because you shared it with me. And but I think that would be a great way to introduce you to our audience. Is let's go through, first of all, explain what Ford is, and then take us through it.
All right. So first of all, let's give credit to John Giegerich, great author and speaker, who I picked this up from. And Ford, the acronym, is not first on race day. It's not found on road dead. The F is for family. The O is for occupation, the R is for recreation, and the D is for dream. And I find it's a great way to get to know people better.
I agree.
All right. You want me to give you in the audience my Ford?
Yeah.
All right. So family, married 28 years, no human children, one rescue Brittany Spaniel, Cooper. He's 7 years old. Quick, interesting story. We lost our 15-and-a-half-year-old Brittany. My wife showed me a picture of Cooper. I said, that's the dog from my dream. I flew from Atlanta to Dallas, put him in the car, drove him 800 miles home.
And it's been love ever since.
Ever since. So that's I'll take him on a nice walk tomorrow to kick off the new year. So that's the family. Occupation. I was in financial services for 30 years. I ran different capital markets and investment banking groups for SunTrust. I then ran the Atlanta Bank for BBVA, then ran the Atlanta Bank for BB&T, retired from that, and coaching the last 4 years, which, as you know, I absolutely love.
Yes.
So that's the occupation. Recreation. You also know the first one of these. I lead a marathon training team.
Boom.
I've run 28 of them. And I ran my last one with you at the Marine Corps Marathon. People can see this picture online near the finish line where I am as jacked as I can possibly be with you crossing the finish line. So absolutely probably the best marathon day I've had in 10 years. Absolutely unbelievable.
I love it.
So that's I call that the healthy passion. Now downstairs, I've got about 1,500 bottles of bourbon, so I like to enjoy some bourbon. But the big thing for me, and I know you're big on giving back, is not only do I enjoy drinking it, but I auction tastings at my house for charities that I support, and I'll raffle off bottles to raise money for charities. So I can enjoy it and do good with it at the same time.
That's awesome.
And
your
then
final?
wrapping it up, 10 years from now, this is my dream. I'm going to be doing the same thing, but on a 50-foot sailboat anywhere in the world my wife wants to be.
All right. When you get on that sailboat, are you selling your house?
No, got to keep the house, Dave. Got to keep the house.
I was just wondering if the bourbon was going with you.
Some of the bourbon will definitely travel.
There you
Some
go.
of the bourbon will definitely travel.
And do you have the sailboat?
No, we don't have a sailboat yet. And by the way, my wife can hear me sometimes give the dream. And what do I get immediately afterwards? I get, for sale, look at this great boat. So we know the boat we want. Sabre is the brand. It's a beautiful ocean-going boat. And we'll get there. But we're not quite there yet.
Now I notice a new. It looks like a new fixture on your shelf behind you. You've got a little hat that says "Make Big Happen." I don't recognize that from the past.
No, that's a new hat. Which, by the way, you also should have gotten one of these hats when we ran the Marine Corps Marathon. So I brought mine home and I put it up there. Because look, here's the "Make Big Happen." You know, it's the mantra of our firm. To help entrepreneurs grow revenue and EBITDA faster. But I also think about it in this way. We want to work big, we want to live big, we want to give big. So running marathons is big. Having 1,500 bottles of bourbon is big. Helping entrepreneurs grow their business is big. So that's what we're about.
I like that. I hadn't heard that from Mark before. And so that's good. I like that. That's a new twist on the Make Big Happen.
It's a little twist. It's my own personal twist.
It's your own personal twist. I like it. That's fantastic. We're coming into, a new year here, 2025. I've seen the thrive in 25, your mantra for the year. I love it. You talk with a lot of CEOs. You coach many CEOs. You work with some, very, very large companies. I think you had said the largest company you work with does $1 billion in revenue. When you're working with an entrepreneur, what does work-life balance really mean to you? And I think this is important because if I understand it right, the smallest company in your personal portfolio of coaching clients is about $2 million a year, and the largest is just over $1 billion. So you're working with companies that are on like either side of this magnificently huge spectrum, right? And then you've got everybody else in between, or maybe everybody else is kind of on one side of the ship and the billion is there in the end. But I don't know. I'm just making that up. But what do you see as work-life balance? How do you see this? How do you see this play out? And is it different for the guy doing $1 billion versus the guy doing $2 million?
It's Dave. First of all, thanks for asking the question. And no, there's not a difference. And honestly, there's also not a difference for someone who's an executive at one of my companies. And I say that because here's my view of work-life balance. First of all, we're not going to be in equal balance on all things, but I want to look at 3 categories: work, family, self. And I want to have an intentional balance on those things. So now we've got maybe a big expansion project, or we're facing some big hurdles at work. Guess what? That's going to take up more of our time and attention than our family and ourself. But we're going to be intentional about making sure we give enough to the family and to ourself that we're in the balance that we desire. Or maybe we're going to go for big training. We're going to try to do another marathon. All right, now I'm putting in more intentional balance into myself. I need to make sure the work and the family are getting their appropriate level of balance. And that is going to be, keyword, intentional. What I find with a lot of executives, particularly CEOs and entrepreneurs, is that the place that they sacrifice is not work, but it's either their family or their self. And most often it's their self. And so when we talk about planning for 2025, we're going to have a company plan. We then ought to have a family plan, or at least a plan with our spouse. And then we have personal plan. These are my top 3 goals for the year. These are the steps that I'm going to take to ensure that I achieve these goals for the year. And this is the balance that I want.
I like that. Now, you went through as in your career, you went through one of the biggest financial crisis ever, right? The economic downturn of 2006, 2008, the Great Depression of our time. You were working with SunTrust. You were running some big stuff for them, and you had to deal with some of the toughest things that anybody might have to deal with. How did you work through that, and what was some of the tough stuff that you really went through, and how did you maintain this work-life balance, this work-family self through that period?
Dave, thanks for bringing this up, because 2006, 2007, I ran the asset securitization business for SunTrust. It was less than 10% of my career at SunTrust, but I feel like in my memory, it's at least 25%. Sometimes it feels like 50%. We made the bank a lot of money in 06. We lost it all in 07. And people talk about 08, but the downturn started in the debt markets and the securitization market in February of 07. And it hit hard. And I remember probably somewhere in March, I'm getting kicked around, the team's getting kicked around pretty good. And I came home and I'm talking to my wife, and she said, "You were built for this." I don't know if that is true, but both you and I know there are some good peacetime CEOs and there are some good time wartime CEOs. And this was a wartime situation for sure. So, critical things. First, always maintain a positive attitude. I remember talking to my boss at the end of the year, and one of the things he said is, "You got us through this, always with a smile on your face." Because how can you lead people if you're downtrodden, if you're in despair? They're not going to follow you. So I don't want to be irrational, but I want to be positive that we can see light at the end of the tunnel and we're going to get there. So that's one thing. Second thing is you've got to make tough decisions. And I was having a discussion with people a few weeks ago when people were asking about toughest decisions you've had to make. And I remember had some agreements, which I won't go into depth with, but if we finalized those, we would have lost millions, tens of millions. And I said to my team, unless we're legally bound to close on these, we're not going to do it. And I'm an honorable person, but at the end of the day, this is tough decision. This is us or them, and we got to make the right decision for us. So positivity and making the tough decisions. And then I'd have to say the self certainly sacrificed and suffered during that period of time, because it was all day, all night for 365 days.
After 365 days, was it over, or did it last a while longer?
Best moment of my life. CEO of SunTrust called me the beginning of 08 and said, "John, we got a new job for you." And I said, "Absolutely love it. What is it?" And that was I started my last job at SunTrust. I ran middle market banking, had an absolutely fantastic team. We had a great 5-year run with that business. So left it behind in '07, went on a great run for the next 5 years.
Okay, I love it. That's fantastic, and I like the positivity, having the smile, you know, leading that way. Are you familiar with Ernest Shackleton?
I am.
That just reminded me of Shackleton, and I love Shackleton, and I even like the ad he posted in the paper. I you know, for it's like three sentences or something. It's like you know, looking for a job where you could potentially die, dark, cold, hard, miserable, horrible, but a chance to be a hero. And, the boat's filled with people. So, I love that.
It's an amazing story. By the way, one other thing I left out, and this is critical in any environment, but particularly tough environments. You've got to pick the people that you can count on. And I had a great group of leaders, frankly, throughout my entire career, but particularly in that asset securitization team, who stepped up to help lead the business to the finish line in 2007. And look, it was still a bleak picture, by the way, but it was not as bleak as it could have been, and we fared a lot better than a lot of other people.
Yeah, you did good, and I think that's an important thing. And even with picking the people, Shackleton, says, hey, Shackleton is out there. He's an explorer. His boat gets stuck in the ice. They know that the ship isn't going to survive. He has to get the people onto an iceberg. And then he's got negative people and positive people, and he has to keep them separate so that they don't infect one another. But you got to be positive. You got to be tough. He had to get off the ship. That was huge. They had to go out onto an iceberg. They couldn't move. It was so slow. Like, just so tough in life, leading through adversity. And I think that's one of the things that you shared, is leading through adversity. You've got to be positive. You've got to be tough, and you've got to pick the right people. You've also got to know who your negative people are and who your positive people are, because the negative people do a lot of damage, and they're really hard to work with. But in some instances, they are needed. Like, you can't just have all positive people that the sun is shining in today's, like, our head is in the clouds, We got to have some of those negative Nancys in there. When you were working through this process, it's easy. I think some people think it's easy to say, stay positive. It's easy to say, pick the people that you can count on. When you were in it and you were going through this stuff and you were making the tough decisions, how did you actually do it? Like, it's easy to say it, but how did you do it? How did you keep the smile on your face? How did you pick the right people?
Dave, it's a good thing. And by the way, you're bringing back some old memories. And one memory that popped into my head was, my boss said to me at one point in the year, it looks like we're getting really smart about 60 seconds too late. And I'll tell you what, I really took that to heart. Frankly, I think I was making the best decisions that we could make at the time, and we were making them as quickly as we could when we had the information. But frankly, I took that as a challenge to say, yeah, I'm going to remain positive, but I'm also going to be crystal clear. As soon as I have enough information to make a decision, I'm going to make it. And I remember there was one case where, again, I won't get into a lot of details, but we needed to sell a security, and we were going to sell that security at a loss. And the CFO said, John, I don't know what you can tell me to agree to that. And I said, here are the facts. And he goes, which were basically, I can sell it for 75 cents today, 50 cents tomorrow, 25 cents 2 weeks from now, and probably a month from now, nothing. And he said, fine, let's get it done. So got to be willing to make the decision, be accountable for the consequences of the decision, and understand no decision is a decision.
No decision is a decision. Isn't that so true?
100%.
We might be able to spend an entire show on that. New year, vision. Being clear on what you want to achieve, being clear on where you want to go. How do you help your clients? How do you help entrepreneurs and CEOs open up, define this vision, but then not just take it, put it into the filing cabinet, leave it there, and then pick it up next year, December 31st, 2025, and say, we did 2 out of 5. It's a pretty good year.
Yeah. Dave, again, another awesome for me. And some people at the firm get sick and tired of me talking about this because if we'll do various webcasts, I always want to talk about vision. And I'm not talking about the vision statement that you put on your website. And I'm not talking about a 2025 plan. I'm saying I want to look at the business, and whether it's 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, some time frame that's out. When I look at my business, what do I want to see? So I want to be clear, what is that shiny city on the hill for my business? And when I'm clear on that and I communicate that to the team, then they can see their role and know what our shining city looks like. So then I want to back that in and say, what must we accomplish in 2025 to be on the yellow brick road to our shiny city on the hill? And if we know those top 3 to 5 things that we have to accomplish in 2025, then we're going to build a clear action plan. Who will do what by when to achieve these things? And then we're going to hold ourselves accountable for taking those actions, individually accountable and group accountability, so that, let's say somebody's behind, we don't just kick them around. We say, what can we do to help? How can we, because this is one of the most important initiatives for the firm, how can we get this thing back on track? So having long-term vision, and I'll give you a quick story. Worked with a 5th generation family business, billion in revenue, but stagnant for about 10 years. And so had a meeting with the 5th generation shareholders and executives at the firm, 2 full days of meetings to recast what's the vision, what's the strategy, what are we going to achieve? And so we set a mark for 5 years. We got there in 18 months. And it was that clarity of saying, we're not just going to try to grow by 5% or 10% each year. 5 years from now, this is where we want to be. And it's a big aspiration. So this is what it's going to take to get there. Made it happen.
You know, I love that. And as I think about the vision, you know, you painted a vision for us in your bio. You know, you shared with us what you want to be doing in 10 years. You want to be coaching, sailing the world with your wife. You want to be on a 50-foot sailboat, and you want to be on a saber.
That's right.
Right? You have painted the picture, like you've created a vision for your own life. And you've blended work and personal together. Like, I want to be working. This is my vision for my work. I want it to be on a boat. I want quite a few bottles of bourbon with me. And I want to be with my wife, and we want to be anywhere in the world. And you put a destination time out there that said, we want to be doing this in 10 years.
Yes, which, by the way, doesn't mean I don't start for 10 years, but I'm not ready to start now. And by the way, part of that is I couldn't carry the number of clients I have now sailing around the world. So I'm going to need fewer. And again, as you know, I have such a passion for this. I can't see not doing it.
Yeah.
But I also can't see not enjoying my life sailing around the world with my wife.
Yeah. No, it's awesome because the vision is, it's like you said, it's that shining city on the hill. It's where we're going, it's what we're doing, it's what we need to achieve to get there. I love that. Um, how important are the annual planning meetings that a company does? How important to the business are these?
They're critical. They're critical because we must align on the top 3 to 5 needle movers, leverage points to drive the business forward. And so one of the mistakes I see when I take on new clients who've been doing annual planning is they'll come out of annual planning with 10, 12 initiatives. 10 or 12 initiatives are not all created equal. And so we want to focus on what are the top 3 to 5, no more than 5 for the year, that are going to actually drive the impact we want on the business. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and share this. So hopefully you don't get mad. But if
Well,
you
if
remember,
I do, I can always cut it because it's my show.
Yes. All right. Perfect. But when you and I met, you said, here are my rocks, using the EOS terminology for the quarter. And I said, what are the top 3 things that you have to accomplish in this quarter for the quarter to be a 10 out of 10? You gave me 3 things. I said, if you achieve those rocks, are you going to achieve those 3 things? And you said no. And so we had to rework them. And so it's that focus of saying, what are the what are the top 3 things I must accomplish in the year? Then I back it down to the quarter. Top 3 things I want to accomplish this quarter. Okay. What are the most important initiatives to ensure that I accomplish them? And then detailed who will do what by when, so we can have a 13-week march for the quarter. So always think about this: vision long-term, annual, and then another step down to the quarter to make sure we have that 13-week march.
Yeah. Another point with, I think, just looking at transparency and my own miss was, in my business, having each one of the different departments, because we had a legal department, we had an ops department, an accounting department, an IT department, HR, right? So we've got all these different departments across the board. And then, in the EOS version of, running the business, it's, hey, in legal, what's the number one thing you need to get done this year? Hey, in ops, what's the number one thing? Hey, in sales, what's the number one thing? Hey, accounting, IT, HR, so on and so forth, right? What's the number one thing? And the big clarifying point for me, where I failed and where I missed as a leader, was, I knew what my top priorities were, and I could articulate those to you. And the big turning moment was when I looked at each of the rocks, the goals, the HOTS, whatever you want to call them, that the different departments had. And the different departments' top priorities were not supporting the top priorities of the company.
Yes.
And so you have 6 or 7 divisions that all think they know what's important and what's best for them, but it's not pulling in alignment with the company. Everybody's, while we're on the same page and we're united, we're still pulling in different directions. And that was a big eye-opener for me.
By the way, I see that. And so this is the concept, which is we have top priorities at the company level. Then after each division or area has done what they need to do to support the company initiatives, They can have incremental, but again, not a lot, maybe one or two departmental initiatives that are particularly important to theirs. But those initiatives cannot impair our ability to achieve the corporate initiatives. And I want to keep it rolling down to the individual. So after I, as an individual, have supported the company initiatives, supported my department initiatives, what's the number one thing that I want to work on or improve on in 2025?
I think I love the alignment, and those little tidbits of alignment are really game changers. Are really game changers for the business. I got two things I want to go through with you. One, I've got a really hard question at the end that I'm going to leave that I'm going to kind of wrap this with. I got a really tough one, and it's actually a methodology proposed by Harvard Business School. So we're going to see what you think about it as we get to the end. But I think as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, we can get personal on this show because this show is about helping entrepreneurs. If we're not helping entrepreneurs, I don't want to do the show, right? This is about helping people have better businesses. You asked me a really tough question, I think the second time we met. Maybe it was the first time. You said, rate your leadership team on a scale of 1 to 10. Values and mission, rate your leadership team on a scale of 1 to 10 performance. And that's operations, legal, sales, and accounting. Those 4 positions. And we went through that exercise, and everybody scored very high when it came to the mission.
Yes.
I didn't have in my mind a single staff member that was above a 7 when it came to execution. That was accounting was a 7, ops was a 7, legal was a 7, sales was probably a 5 at the time. And ops might have even been a 5. I don't know. I can't remember. But you could look back and tell me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then you said to me, well, if they're really 7s and 6s, they're probably 6s and 5s and 4s because you're not being 100% honest. And you asked me a really tough question. And you said, hey, I know you're into, charity and philanthropy and giving back. And I know you have these strong Christian beliefs. He said, are these beliefs that you have keeping you tied to people who are underperforming? And are you not making the hard decision and terminating and removing those people from your team because of your commitment to the mission, because of your loyalty to the mission of the business? Are you not tough enough? Are you not being tough enough to make the tough decisions? I had to really sit and think about that.
Yeah.
By the way, not one of those people is with the company today. So,
No.
we had to make some tough decisions, right?
That's right.
But the thing was that the team was not executing. And that was something that was really, really hard for me to think about and work through.
Dave, it's the hardest thing, but most important thing for leaders to do. By the way, I have found that people with strong faith tend to tolerate underperformers more than others. By the way, that doesn't mean others don't tolerate underperformers either. I did a webcast and we had a breakout afterwards, and we'd gone over a number of tools we use. And I had 20 CEOs in the room. And I said, what was the number one thing that resonated with you? 18 of 20 said the 9-box grid, which is a different version of my rating on a scale of 1 to 10,
Yep.
job performance, and cultural fit, because they didn't have the right people in the right seats doing the right things. And to me, my main message to you, to my other clients, is this: you can't tolerate weakness in either job performance or cultural fit. I had someone ask me at a presentation, what do you do with a great performer who's a 5 on culture? I said, for me, it's easy. They're gone, because they're a culture cancer and they're killing your organization. I don't care how well they perform. The business will perform better without them. But having that discipline to make sure, because even a $2 million business, you can't put the business on your back and take it across the finish line. You're only going to win if you've got the right team.
Yeah.
And so it's critical to have that right team.
It is critical, and these are really hard questions. And you asked me another question. You said, if you were starting over today, would you hire these people back? And the answer was no.
Right.
Right. And that's true with job and culture. And I can tell you that one of the best salespeople that I ever had, and you know how hard it is to find a good salesperson, right?
Yes.
Like one of the best salespeople that I ever had probably been with me for a decade. This guy never missed his quota. I mean, never. But he was a cancer. I mean, he would hound that operations team. He would, I mean, we ran through more operations people with him than anybody else, because he just wouldn't, like he wouldn't give them, a second off. I had to let him go. And when I let him go, this was many, many years ago, maybe 17, 16, and 2017, 2016. But when I let him go, it was like a black cloud lifted from the office. And while we didn't have the revenue production, the actual office was happier and we were more profitable.
Yeah.
So the tough questions, the tough things that you ask of a coaching client, one of the things you ask in the beginning is, are you coachable? Because having these conversations about key people who have been there for a long time, who have a lot of DNA into the company, are really hard decisions, really hard conversations. You can coach up, but I don't know that you can coach out of a 5 or a 6 or a 7. What are your thoughts there?
I don't believe you can coach out of a 5, 6, maybe a 7. And here's so there's not much original left in the world, but I have an original view on leadership, which is the empowerment and expectations leadership model. So I want you just to envision, and we've talked about this before, a small box inside of a large box. And I want everybody to operate inside that large box, which I call leadership. So what is that going to take? Clear expectations. What have I delegated to them? What am I giving them authority to run and be responsible for? So I've set the expectation. I've now empowered them to take action and make decisions to achieve everything inside that large box. And then the last piece is I'm going to hold them accountable for those decisions and actions. If they're doing great, no problems. If they're making poor decisions, taking poor actions, now I'm going to have to manage them to the little box. Okay? I'm only going to do that as long as I have to until I feel good coming back out to the big leadership box. If I've got to keep coming back down to that little management box, I've got to find them a different box, which it may be at the company. I may have them in the wrong box for my firm, or there may just not be a box for them where they can thrive at my firm. And I want to thank them for their service. I want to have them go find a place where they can be successful and operate inside that large box at another organization.
Right, because there is a right fit for them. There is a job that'll make them happy. There is a job in a place that'll give them what they need. All right. So here's a question for you. This is just something that I think is very interesting. So I was going back and I was looking for some slides that a professor had shared at Harvard Business School. Okay, and I was looking for some slides specifically around happiness. I was going to write a post on LinkedIn, and it's about a king who reigned for 50 years, and he journaled and wrote every day. One of the most prolific journalers, and this is going back to like 1,000 years or whatever. And he says, I've known war, I've known peace, I've known wealth. I've had everything in my life. Nothing has been withheld from me, and I've reigned over everybody for 50 years. And he says, I counted the days of happiness in my life, and I count 12 days of happiness. That's an interesting story. So I was writing a post about this, and I happened to land on a slide that talked specifically about coaching. And in this slide, it says, fire your coach after 2 years. Don't work with anybody for longer than 2 years. And I was thinking to myself, that's a very interesting thought. And then I was thinking about CEO Coaching International. I was thinking about my relationship with CEO Coaching International. And then I was thinking about Rich Ballett. And Rich Ballett is the owner of a company, or the CEO of a company called Victra. They have 1,700 Verizon stores. They do about $3 billion in revenue. And he has been a client of the firm for over a decade. And so I think about those two things, very, very different spectrums, very different, contrasts. How do you think that plays out? Do you think that the life of a coaching engagement is 2 years? Do you think it's 10 years? How does it change? How do you not get too familiar with the same routines, the same questions? How do you keep it fresh? Like what happens there in your mind? How do you respond to that?
All right, Dave, it's a good question. Which, by the way, one of the things coaches like to hear is when we ask a question and you say, hey, that's a great question. All right, that's a good question. Here's the thing. You've got to be adding, this applies to everything, but it certainly applies to coaching, which is you have to be adding value every day. So you can't let anything get stale. So most of our agreements are month to month. So Rich Ballett didn't sign a 10-year contract, right? But every month he knows he's getting value from the coaching that he's getting. And that's one-on-one coaching plus his planning sessions. And that's helped drive the growth of his business. So for me as a coach, and I'm going to just say you've experienced this, I'm on my A game for my calls, or if I'm leading a meeting. I had a client, I said, how are you doing? He goes, I'm doing all right. I'm not going to even bother to ask you how you're doing. You're always doing awesome. I said, first of all, I am. And second of all, would you want to get on the call with me where I said, man, it's been a tough day. I'm really beat. No, I'm here for you. This is your time. And so to me, that's keeping it fresh. Here's the other thing that's happened. So in the 4 years I've been doing this, clients, we can go and man, everything's going great. And we're talking about growth and it's fantastic. And then boom, we get waylaid by something. And so now we're focused on that and we're going to get through that. And now we're back into, okay, now we're in growth mode. So it's constantly be thinking in your foxhole, what's the most important thing right now? What can I be thinking about to help you think around the corner into the future so that we can accelerate our growth and maybe miss some minefields that are out there?
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I don't know if I'm ready to leave that topic yet.
All right.
But I think that one thought about coaching is that when you are the entrepreneur and you work with a coach and you put these plans together and you lay out these visions and you're right, you always are outstanding and things are always moving forward. But and that perception that you create for your client is a wonderful thing, but it's not always the truth about what's going on in your own life, because you have your own life with its own ups and downs and perils and, things that are happening. It's just life. But what happens when you're coaching a client and you've put together a plan and a program and they come to you and they say, yeah, man, I'm hitting the goals. Yeah, man, I got this done. Yeah. And they're not, because they don't want to let you down. How do you coach through that? Is that an uncoachable client? Is what's happening there that, is one, they want to please you. They're people pleaser, but ultimately they're doing harm to themselves and they're spending the money on the coaching. And so what happens is it's they leave with this idea that, oh man, coaching is a scam.
Yeah, because they're not making progress.
Right.
All right. First thing, are you coachable? I did a little LinkedIn post on this. Frankly, I think this is in there, but hopefully it is, which is, first, the foundation has to be trust. The coaching relationship is that trust and comfort that we have real talk, not surface level talk. So we got to talk about the real issues. And if we're not getting things done, then let's talk about what's getting in the way of them not getting done if they're important. If they're not important, why do we focus on getting them done? I tell you, these things pop into my mind. And I talked to a client, former client. He sold his business. So he's currently retired, so not an active client. But he's actually writing a book. It'll come out later this year. So we were talking a couple of weeks ago. And I said, I remember when you called to fire me. And he laughed because he wasn't thinking about it in that way. But we were meeting every other week and he was overwhelmed. His business was changing fast every day. There was a lot going on. And he said, John, the business is changing so fast and I can't get the things done that we agreed on in this 2-week period. And so I called him back and I just said, hey, just tell me what's going on. So I wasn't trying to sell. I was trying to be of service, trying to understand. And we talked it through and I said, look, let's go to meet every week, which we did. And let's just agree on this. I don't assign homework and priorities. They're your priorities. We've aligned on them. You're not always going to get them done, but we want, for us to be successful together, you to prioritize getting these things done because we've aligned they're the most important.
That's powerful. That's good stuff. It starts with trust, and it really starts with, that's right. It's a servant leadership type relationship.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So leadership.
Hey, Dave, let me give you one other thing, because I think this is important. Look, at the end of the day, The CEO, my client, is the man in the arena or the woman in the arena, right? I'm asking questions, I'm giving perspective, but at the end of the day, I never lose sight of who's in the arena and who's in the corner. So I had a client, it was clear to me he should terminate a high performer who was a cultural cancer. It took him 12 months to get there. Okay? You're going to have to move at the client's pace. And so I can see something. I could say if I was in charge, I would do it, but I'm not. I want to give my perspective. At the end of the day, I'll say it again, the CEO is the one in the arena. And don't push too hard, but also don't push too soft.
I like it. I think that was good. And I also love the man in the arena from the Teddy Roosevelt breakdown of that. I think that's one of my favorite.
It's in your office.
Things. Yes,
I
it is.
love
I
it.
love it. I love it. All right, leadership. We need leadership. Leadership is important. You've got some expectations around a leadership model. What do those look like, and how do those impact growth? I think, as we're coming into a new year, as we start to bring this in for a landing, leadership, empowerment, growth. How are you helping clients get there? What do clients need to focus on? What does growth really look like for 2025?
Okay. I'm going to come back to leadership, but before I do, since you mentioned growth, I want to talk about growth for a second, because maybe with a couple of exceptions, I don't have a client that isn't looking for a way to increase their growth rate. And one of my clients, I actually got this from, but I love it, so I've adopted it, which is the 3 levels of sales. So level 1 is, I have a widget. Do you want to buy it? Level 2 is, you have a problem. I have a solution. Level 3 is, I have a dream. We can accomplish something amazing. Too often what I see are sales teams that are selling widgets. That's not a successful strategy for growth. There aren't many people that can get to level 3 of selling a dream, but there are some. So I would say most companies have the ability to operate at this level 2, which is, you have a problem, I have a solution. But when we go through that, we have to be really crystal clear, what is their problem and what is most important to them? You'll recall when we were talking about your business, we talked, number one thing most important to our customers is communication. Okay? Is that one of our strengths? If it is, great. If it's not, we better strengthen it, because that's what's most important. So if you can get the sales team focused in every way on thinking about that solution, then we're going to be successful.
I love it. I love it. I love the 3 levels of sales. I think that's really powerful. Are you selling widgets? Are you solving problems? Or are you selling a dream? When I think of a dream, I think of Tom's shoes.
Yes.
We're going to buy a pair of shoes, and then we're going to give a pair to somebody in India.
That's right. So somewhere else.
That's right.
Other thing on sales, I love this, which is audience plus activity plus message equals success. I have to ensure I'm calling on the right audience. I've got the right quality and quantity of activities. That's phone calls, it's LinkedIn messages, it's texts, it's emails, it's in-person meetings, whatever those things are. I want to hold myself accountable for that activity. And then I want to make sure I've got the right message. Is my message crisp, and does it resonate with the audience? If we're weak in one of those 3 things, we're not going to get to the potential growth that's in front of us.
Bam. I love it. All right. Last question of the night. Thrive in 25. What is it? Why are we doing it? Where did you come up with it? What's the story? Thrive in 25.
All right. First of all, it just sounds catchy. It's in the 3 C's of communication. It's clear, concise, and compelling. Thrive in 25. And this is the view. We want everything to thrive. We want our business to thrive. We want our family to thrive. And we want to thrive as individuals. And so if you go back to my planning, it's looking out at the year and saying, what are the top 3 goals for me, for the business, for my family, for myself, for the year? And if I accomplish those things, then I have thrived in 25. So my biggest scorecard is, how are my clients doing, right? That's the business side. How am I doing as a coach? And important to me is not just how is the business doing, but how is the CEO doing? My client who I mentioned sold his business. I could celebrate the fact that we sold that business for a lot of money and he did very well. Honestly, the happiest part about coaching him was when he first came to me, he struggled to make decisions. By the end, he was making decisions faster than I would make decisions. So seeing the change in the person is one of the things that drives me on that side. And then I'll have my own goals for the family side, which I won't go into, but personal side, marathons continue. You and I are going to do a half marathon the end of January in Clearwater at the all-day running company. Clearwater half marathon is going to be awesome. I'm running London in April. I'm hopefully going to run Sydney, which is now a new world major marathon, in August. And then I'm going to do Chicago in September. And then I'm going to wrap up the year with you December 14th in Honolulu. So that is going to be our Thrive in 25 from a marathon perspective.
All right. I love it. In my marathon perspective, I'm going to see you in Florida on the 25th for the all-day running company. That's going to be fantastic. And then I'm doing Vegas in February. I'm doing LA in March. I'm doing 50K Mount Si in April. I don't know what I'm doing the remainder of the months, but Amy is going to join me for a half marathon in June. So that's exciting. We're going to do that together. And then
awesome.
Honolulu, December 14th. I'm so excited for that marathon a year out. That's absolutely fantastic. I love it. All right. So you're coaching. Are you taking on new clients?
I am taking on new clients. Just took on a new client who'll start at the beginning of the year. So
you are taking on new clients. How many spaces do you have open?
You know, Dave, that's a tough question. And here's why. I don't like to say no. I got to the point where I had 24 clients at one point because clients would say, can you help this person? I would say, yes, I can. I was probably out of my intentional balance on 24 clients. So I would say right now I probably have 3, but at the end of the day, if one of my clients says, can you help this person? And I believe they're coachable and I can help them, I'm going to do it because I love doing it.
So you've got 3 open spots. So listen, if you're out there in the audience today and you're looking to take your business, your life, your journey to the next level, get a hold of my good friend, John Giegerich, and maybe you'll be lucky enough to get a spot on the roster. But you might not because he's kind of a tough guy. So even though he smiles and is happy all the time. But listen, check him out, get with him. And it's absolutely fantastic. You know, you've been life-changing for me. It's been a great experience. And I like to say on some levels, coaching saved my life. And I don't know if I'm ready to go into all the details on the podcast show, but there will be a time to have that show. And that's probably sometime in the future. But coaching is incredible. Working with you has been incredible. You're an incredible coach. You do an incredible job. You do care. It's not just about dollars and cents. It's about real relationships and really taking it to the next level. And I've loved working with you and have appreciated the last year we spent together. So I know that anybody else out there would be lucky to get a spot on the team because you do a great job. How can people get a hold of you? What's the best way? Are you on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram? Where are you hanging out?
Dave, I'm on LinkedIn, John Giegerich, easy to find. On Facebook, John Giegerich, easy to find. On LinkedIn, The Giegerich, which is just a funny bourbon story because when I purchased my first barrel of my own barrel of bourbon, I said, I want to put my name on it. And one of my friends says, you can't just put Giegerich on it. It needs to be The Giegerich. And so that's the Instagram name.
That stuck for your Instagram handle.
It did. So that's the bourbon name. Look, I want to say this, as you know, because I started getting a little teary-eyed in DC. I am so proud of you that I could just about burst.
Thank you.
And so we talk about grit.
Yeah.
We lead easy lives. Even when we face business and personal challenges, man, life is really not that hard. So for you to put in have all the grit to go through a 30-week training program, never miss a day, going into the woods and breaking off a stick when your back goes out to finish,
that was
what
crazy.
I think was a 17-mile run, get through the challenges on race day. I'm proud of you for that. I'm proud of what you are to your family. Absolutely love the way you travel with Amy and the kids.
Yep.
Love to see D-Shot say outstanding. We're going to work on Madeline understanding she's supposed to say outstanding when we ask her how she's doing. And then we got little Charlie, who we need to get him to the point where he can say outstanding, and we'll have a clean sweep. But it's been an absolute joy, as you know.
It has been awesome, and it's been a lot of fun, and DC was incredible. And I will tell you, for the audience to know that, running this 26 miles, it almost killed me. And there was a couple of minutes that I almost wasn't going to make the thing, the beat the bus car past me a couple times. And I got across that finish line, and it was so hard to get across the finish line. And John was so jacked up for me to get across that finish line. He sprinted over the top of the fence that keeps the spectators out, and he comes alongside me and he was so happy because I think at one moment he thought I wasn't going to make it. Right?
Yes.
Like it was like, people were saying, man, you're not going to make it. And he, wham, hit me so hard on the back. He about knocked me down, and I'm a big guy. He was so enthusiastic. But it was awesome. And the enthusiasm and the joy and the fun and everything that we accomplished there was awesome. And it impacted more lives than just mine, right? Like my kids' lives were impacted because they got to see the journey, and my brother's life was impacted because he ran it with us, and my sister-in-law, her life was impacted and her husband ran it. And so it was like this accomplishment, for a lot of people. And I'm a Native American, and there's a couple natives on the tribe that, they're pretty big guys, and they're going to run their first 5K in April, right? So what we do and the impact and the legacy that we live and leave behind is not just for us in the moment, but it impacts people all around us. And so the lives that have been touched have been many lives that have been touched. And so, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the mission that we've been on. And I'm grateful for, what's going to happen this year. So, let's do it. Thrive in 25, brother.
Thrive in 25.
All right. This is it. We're bringing it in for a landing. John, thanks for being on the show. If you like the show, give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments in the comment box. And if you're looking for a great coach, hit up John. He's got 3 spaces left. You're not going to want to miss out on that opportunity. John, thanks for being on the show, brother. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Dave. Love you, brother.
Love you too.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. There's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.